Joining us is Republican Senator John Thune. Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Greta.
All right, the Gang of Six, do they have the answer?
Well,
I wasn't looking at, oh dear, you're laughing. That's not a good start.
No, I think they've made a good faith effort. There are a lot of our colleagues who put a good amount of work into this, but there are still a lot of details that we don't know. And many of us who have looked at their proposal think a couple of things about it. One is it freezes spending at 2011 levels, which enshrines and locks in the huge spending increases we've seen in the last 2 years.
And you want to go back to what, like 2008?
Well, 2008.
Okay.
Our proposal, cut, cap, and balance, goes back to 2006. But anyway, we go back to before we started spending like we were, drunken sailors here in Washington. And secondly, on the revenue components, it's still unclear which baseline you're using and whether that constitutes, I think we all agree it constitutes a tax increase. It's just how big is that tax increase, and that's something that many of us believe we shouldn't be doing in the middle of an economic downturn. All
right, so that I understand it, the Gang of Six plan is a proposal. It's not sort of like laid out instructions so that anyone knows exactly what this is, right? It's sort of a, this is what we'd like to do in general.
It is. I mean, they've handed out a 3-page outline, but it's not been put into legislative text. There's no draft yet of it, and so it's really hard to make an evaluation, and we've gotten sort of conflicting reports about what's in it. Like I said, I think they're trying, they're putting forward a proposal, but we're going to vote this week on a cut, cap, and balance proposal, which I think represents the best opportunity to really address in a meaningful way the need to reduce spending, reform spending, and get this runaway debt under control. And
with a little sarcasm in my voice, if we're really lucky, they'll take this 3-page proposal, send it to the drafters, and come back. It'll be 2,800 pages. Nobody will read it. Everybody will vote on it, right? Well, that's a potential problem. I mean, I don't think there's enough time. Yeah, I mean, it's serious. Between now and the deadline, August the 2nd. It's hard to feature actually getting the legislative language drafted, getting the Congressional Budget Office to score it, and actually being able to allow enough time for senators and House members to look at it and vote on it. So I think it's highly unlikely that this thing is going to come to any sort of conclusion between now and when we face that August 2nd deadline. If they don't bring the spending cuts back to the baseline of 2008, forget about all the other aspects of it, will you be voting for it? Is that a deal breaker for you? I think it's a deal breaker because you have to demonstrate that we got the message, that the 24% increase in spending that we've seen in the last 2 years is just unacceptable. It's unacceptable to the American people at a time when inflation was 2% and they were tightening their belts. Congress is spending like there's no tomorrow. So I think you've got to go back and demonstrate they're willing to cut spending now, cap it in future years, and then put a balanced budget amendment in place so that we have the kind of discipline that so many states have, and they've been able to get their budgets balanced. So I think these are the components of the cut, cap, and balance approach, and I think it makes the most sense. The House passed it last night. We're going to get a chance to vote on it in the Senate. All right. Now, in terms of tax increase, if part of this Gang of Six proposal is to eliminate part or all of the, for instance, a mortgage deduction, is that a tax increase in your mind? Well, in my view, closing tax loopholes is something I think we ought to be looking at. Is it a tax hike? I'm in favor of tax reform. Well, it is, unless it's accompanied by reductions in rates. Now, the one thing I'll give the Gang of Six credit for is they did recognize that in order to grow the economy, we've got to get the marginal income tax rates down on both individuals and businesses. But there are significant tax increases in there. And again, this is a very, I would characterize this as sort of a moving target, because whether or not this is a tax increase or not, it depends entirely on which baseline you use. If you assume that the Bush tax cuts are going to expire at the end of 2012, then they can say that this would actually be a tax cut. If you assume that that policy is going to continue into the future, what they're proposing constitutes a tax increase. And that, I think, is what gives many of us concerns about it. What is it, how realistic is it that you're going to have a vote on cut, cap, and balance? We're going to get a vote in the Senate on Saturday. And the number, what do you anticipate the number being? I'd like to see us hold all Republicans and win some Democrats over. Clearly it's going to take 60 to get to the magic number in the Senate. But I think the House demonstrated this is what they can pass. This is an approach. We now have an alternative out there that puts, I think, the President and the Senate Democrats in a position where they're going to have to answer with something, because so far the President hasn't put a plan out. The Senate Democrats certainly haven't put a plan out. We haven't had a budget now in over 800 days. So they're going to have to react to this. And they're going to get on the record. They're going to get a chance to go on the record on Saturday on cut, cap, and balance. So after the cut, cap, and balance vote, I assume that that's not simply something symbolic. I mean, beyond that is that when you do get the Gang of Six proposal, that unless the things we talked about, for instance, bringing the spending cuts back, that's dead in the water to you.
I think that, I hope that cut, cap, and balance passes.
The president's going to veto it if it does pass it. I mean,
okay,
it is going to be a statement. Do you agree to the American people that it's not going to be a reality as much as you want it?
I think it is a straightforward, serious, meaningful proposal to deal with the spending and debt issue at the same time we raise the debt limit. And I think we've got to address the debt if we're going to raise the debt limit. And there isn't another plan out there that does that. If it doesn't pass, then what is the next step? I'm not sure I know the answer to that at this point, but it's got to include some meaningful reductions in spending, or it's going to be very, very hard, I think, to get any Republicans in the House or the Senate to vote for it.
All right, I know you said no. I know you've made the announcement no, but a lot of things have happened, and even things with different candidates. Have you reconsidered it just a little bit about running for president? I mean, is there part of you that thinks that maybe there's still a chance you're going to run in 2012?
Well, you got DeMint here. You should ask DeMint that question.
I'll ask DeMint that question.
But
is it still a no, or are you thinking about it a little bit now?
We've got a very full field. I made my decision. I'm comfortable with that.
So that's a no.
I'm busy in the Senate.
That's absolute no.
I'm very busy in the Senate, and hoping that we can do something about cut, cap, and balance this week.
And come August 3rd, what do you foresee looking in the crystal ball?
Well, I think my assumption again is that something is going to happen between now and August the 3rd. But I sincerely hope, for the sake of the American people and for the good of this country, that we do something about the spending issue. This is a spending problem. It is not a revenue problem. Raising taxes like the president wants to do would be terrible for this economy.
Senator, thank you, sir.
Thanks, Greta.
Everyone